lying between the two men.
Oh, that certainly sounds provocative.
A golden tray full of wisdom and belief was brought to me, and my body was cut open from the throat to the lower part of my pubic area. The prophet said my abdomen was washed with Zamzam water, taking away doubt or polytheism, or pre-Islamic beliefs or error. Then he took out my heart and filled it with belief and wisdom before returning it to its place. Then Al-Barak, a white animal smaller than a mule and bigger than a donkey, was brought to me, and I set out with Gabriel. The prophet said the animal's step was so wide it reached the farthest point within the reach of the animal's sight.
From the Sirah we read,
Ishak, while I was in the Hijr, Gabriel came and stirred me with his foot. He took me to the door of the mosque, and there was a white animal, half mule, half donkey, with wings on its sides, yet it was propelled by its feet. He mounted me on it. When I mounted, he shied. Gabriel placed his hand on its mane and said,
to the jackass,
You should be ashamed to behave this way. By God, you have never had a more honorable rider than Muhammad. The animal was so embarrassed it broke into a cold sweat.
In a hadith from a Muslim's collection, Muhammad dispenses with the surgery and adds 2 ritual prayers in the temple, along with a refreshing drink.
Muslim. The messenger said, I was brought on Al-Barak, an animal white and long. I mounted it and came to the temple in Jerusalem. I tethered it to the ring used by the prophets and entered the mosque, praying 2 rakas in it. Then I came out
of the non-existent building,
and Gabriel brought me a vessel of wine and one of milk. I chose the milk, and he said, You have chosen the natural thing, and took me to heaven. Ishak. When we arrived at the temple in Jerusalem, we found Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, along with a company of prophets. I acted as their imam in prayer.
In case you're curious,
Moses was a ruddy-faced man, thinly fleshed, curly-haired, with a hooked nose. Jesus was a reddish man with lank, wet hair and many freckles. After the completion of my business in Jerusalem, a ladder was brought to me, finer than any I have ever seen.
Mind you, since there was no wood in Mecca, he had never seen a ladder.
An angel was in charge of it, and under his command were 12,000 angels, each of them having 12,000 angels under his command.
Imagine that, 144 million angels holding a ladder.
And none knows the armies of Allah better than he.
Knowing Muhammad, what do you suppose he asked to see first? If you guessed hell, you win.
Ishak. Muhammad said, Order Malik to show me hell. Certainly, O Malik, show Muhammad hell. Thereupon he removed its covering, and the flames blazed high into the air until I thought that they would consume everything.
In Islam, wrong is right, down is up. Hell is where Allah lives. Bukhari and Muslim converge at this point, and we learn that hell is in the nearest heaven.
When I reached the nearest heaven, Gabriel said to heaven's gatekeeper, Open the gate. The guard asked, Who is it? He said, Gabriel. The gatekeeper said, Who is accompanying you? Gabriel said, Muhammad. The guard replied, Has he been called? Gabriel said, Yes. Then it was said, He is welcomed. What a wonderful visit his is. Then I met Adam and greeted him and said, You are welcomed, O son and prophet. Gabriel said, These parties on his right and on his left are the souls of his descendants. Those of him on his right are the companions of paradise, and the parties which are on his left are the inmates of hell. So when Adam looked toward his right side, he laughed, and when he looked left, he wept.
Ishak gets a little graphic at this point.
Adam reviewed the spirits of his offspring. The infidels excited his disgust. Then I saw men with lips like camels. In their hands were pieces of fire like stones, which they thrust into their mouths. They came out their posteriors.
Before I tell you who deserved this fate, think about the folks who irked Muhammad the most. Who wouldn't share what he coveted? Who neglected him, allowing him to be abused?
I was told they sinfully devoured the wealth of orphans.
Others had.
Bellies like camels.
Some were.
Maddened by thirst. Then I saw women hanging by their breasts. They had fathered bastards.
But not all was hellish. Speaking of the son whose wife he would steal in an act of incest, the prophet said,
Eshach. He took me into paradise, and there I saw a damsel with dark red lips. I asked her to whom she belonged, for she pleased me much when I saw her. She said, Zayed,
Muhammad's adopted son.
The apostle gave Zayed the good news about her.
She was his consolation prize, I suppose. Returning to Muslim and Bukhari.
Then we ascended to the second heaven. The guard at the gate asked, Who is it? Gabriel said, Gabriel. The gatekeeper asked, Who is with you? He said, Muhammad. Has he been sent for? Yes. Then the guard said, He is welcomed. What a wonderful visit his is, and opened the gate. Then I met Jesus and Yahya, who said, You are welcome, O brother and pious prophet.
Rising above Jesus,
we ascended to the third heaven. The keeper of the gate asked, Who is it? Gabriel. The gatekeeper asked, Who is with you? Muhammad. Has he been sent for? Yes. He is welcomed, and what a wonderful visit his is. He opened the gate. The prophet added, There I met Joseph and greeted him. He replied, You are welcomed, brother and prophet. We ascended to the fourth heaven, and again the same questions and answers were exchanged with the gatekeeper. There I met Idris,
who is Enoch.
He said, Welcome, prophet. We ascended to the fifth heaven, and again the same questions and answers were exchanged at the gate with its guard. There I greeted Aaron.
The Islamic heaven is filled with Jews, and it has more gates and guards than do most prisons. I wonder if that's a coincidence. Whatever the reason, they were all flung open for the great Arab prophet.
Then we ascended to the sixth heaven, and again the same questions and answers were exchanged. There I met and greeted Moses. When I proceeded on, he started weeping, and on being asked why, he said, Followers of this youth who was sent after me will enter paradise in greater numbers than my followers.
This passage provides a glimpse into Muhammad's corroded heart. In an effort to elevate himself, he had the audacity to claim that Moses was jealous of him. Leaving Jewish prophets in the dust, our dynamic duo scampered ever higher.
We ascended to the seventh heaven, and again the same questions and answers were exchanged with the gatekeeper. There I greeted Abraham. He ascended with me till I was taken to such a height I heard the scraping of pens. I was shown Al-Bayt al-Mamur, Allah's house. I asked Gabriel about it, and he said, This is where 70,000 angels perform prayers daily, and when they leave they never return to it. A fresh batch arrives daily. I was shown Sidrat al-Muntaha, a tree, and I saw its nabak, fruits which resembled clay jugs. Its leaves were like elephant ears. 4 rivers originated at its root. I asked Gabriel about them. The 2 hidden rivers are in paradise, and the apparent ones are the Euphrates and the Nile.
At least he had the last part right. He was in a state of denial.
50 prayers were enjoined on me.
By Allah. But Moses wasn't pleased.
I descended until I reached Moses, who asked, What have you done? I asked, I have been ordered to offer 50 prayers a day. He said, Your followers cannot bear 50 prostrations. I tested your people before you, and tried my level best to bring the tribe of Israel to obedience.
That would be Islam.
Your followers cannot put up with such an obligation, so return to your Lord and request a reduction in the burden. I returned and requested Allah for reduction, and he made it 40. I had a similar discussion with Moses. Then I returned to Allah for a reduction, and he made it 30, then 20, then 10. Then I came to Moses, who repeated the same advice. Ultimately, Allah reduced it to 5. When I came to Moses the last time, he said, What have you done? I said, Allah has made it 5 only. He repeated the same advice, but I said that I had requested so many times I felt ashamed and surrendered to Allah's final offer. When I left, I heard a voice saying, "I have passed